Daf Gimel Amud Beis, the second line from the top. We learned previously that we learn out that Mafrishan, that you do the Hafrosh of the sequestering before Yom Kippur, we learn out from the Miluim. The Gemara had a kasha, how do we know that the limud from Miluim is to teach me to apply it to Yom Kippur? Maybe it's to apply it to Rosh Hashanah or Shuas. Maybe it's to teach us that before Rosh Hashanah, the Kohen has to be separated. How do you know that's referring to Yom Kippur? So the Gemara attempted to say because Yom Kippur is more daima, is more similar to Miluim. In both cases, the korban comes from the personal funds. The Miluim, it came from the personal funds, and here also the Kohen Gadol, it has to come from his own funds. Mashenkin Rosh Hashanah, it comes from the tzibur. Rosh Hashanah, it comes from the tzibur. The Gemara asks a question, if that's true if you say that l'cha means from your own money, from your own funds, but it seems to be that it's a machlokes. Tanya, because we learned in a brayso, kach l'cha mishalcha. When the Torah says kach l'cha, the Rebbeinu Shem said to Moshe, kach l'cha, it means from your own funds. V'aseh l'cha mishalcha. So when it says kach l'cha samim, take the spices, so it means from your own funds. Aseh l'cha, make for you chatzaitzos, the trumpets, from your own funds. But when it says v'yikhu elecha, when it says v'yikhu elecha, though it says Shem Zayzach, it says in Lashon of the v'yikhu, they shall take it, mishal tzibur, the Ravishya. But Rabbi Yisrael Amar ben kach l'cha ben, and whether it says kach l'cha ben v'yikhu elecha, mishal tzibur, no. And it says, even though it says it in the singular, it doesn't mean literally that he has to use his own money, that he has to bring it from his own funds. No, that's not what it means. In both cases, Mishal Tzibur. What does it mean to say kach l'cha? Why does it switch to a Lashon Yachid? To teach you kiviyachol mishalchani roitza yosem mishalahem. It means to say kiviyachol that I view it and that it's from your own funds, because I prefer it coming from you. I have this chavivus to you that I would prefer that it comes from your funds. And I consider that it comes from your funds, but not that there's a requirement that it comes from Moshe Rabbeinu's own money. He says, it says that you make for yourself the Aron Amiraves. It says they make it, not you, but they. When the Israel are fulfilling the wishes of the Rebbeinu Shalom, then it's considered it from theirs. But when they don't do the will of Rebbeinu Shalom, then it's considered to come from Moshe Rabbeinu, not from them. But upon him, what do we see over here? We see over here that the Lashon of l'cha doesn't necessarily mean that it comes from you personally. So therefore, how do we know over here that in both cases that it comes from the personal funds of the Kohen? More answers, no. That's only when it says in general, it says kach l'cha or asisa l'cha. But there's a machlokes, doesn't mean personally or not. But that's only there where it says kach kichas b'alma asiyas d'alma. Kichas d'alma, like the pasuk says, kach l'chal samim. Take spices. Asiyas d'alma, because it says asay l'cha shtei chatzvei kesa. That's only in those cases. Aval hanach, but in these cases, the case of Yom Kippur and the case of the Miluim, it's clear that it means personal, from personal funds, because Perusha kamafarish the Mishalcho, because the Torah clarifies it and is mafarish that it means from your own funds. Why? B'Miluim, Mirtei Miluim it says Ksiv al Bnei Yisrael Kedaber Leimar K'chu Seir Izim L'Chatos. It says that speak to Bnei Yisrael, to them, and to take a series of lachatos. Then it says Vayemer al Har kach l'cha egel ben bakar lachatos. Lamali. So why does it switch it, and why does it say that take l'cha, take for yourself? Shemamina kach l'cha mishalcho. That's what it says to over here when it says l'cha. And it changes it to teach you that what we mean over here is, it means specifically from your funds. It says he should come into the Kodesh with a par ben bakar for Chatas. And from Bnei Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, take 2 goats for a Chatas. And then it says, Vehikriv es parachatas asher loy. It says he's makriv the parachatas for himself. Asher loy lamali. So why does he say loy over here? Shema mino hai loy mishol loyhu, to teach us that the loy means from his own funds. So therefore, in conclusion, in both cases, Miluim and by Yom Kippur, it's from personal funds, likuli alma. And therefore, that's why we draw the comparison between the two, and we learn out, just like there was Prisha by the Miluim, there's Prisha before Yom Kippur, and it does not mean Rosh Hashanah. Rav Ashi Omri gives another reason why we should choose Yom Kippur over Rosh Hashanah, because in the case of Yom Kippur and Miluim are similar, because in both cases it's a Par L'Chatas, and the Ayel is for an oil. So we done in Par L'Chatas V'ayel Oil, Mi Par L'Chatas V'ayel Oil, La'afuk Rosh Hashanah Matzeret, to the exclusion of Rosh Hashanah and Shlu is the Tavai Oilus Ninu. They are both oilus, not a Chatas, and they're both oilus, so therefore Yom Kippur is more similar to Miluim. Ravina Amari gives a different teretz, done in Avodah B'Kayin Gadol, Me Avodah B'Kayin Gadol. We learn out from Miluim, because in both cases the Avodah was with the Kayin Gadol. So we have that similarity. The love avodah b'kayin gadol, and that excludes all the other cases and answers all the kashas why we don't learn out the regolim, why we don't learn out the Rosh Hashanah, etc. Because this deals with all of this, because the only two that have this similarity, that they're both with the Kohen Gadol, it's Miluim and Yom Kippur. That's why we learn it Davka to Yom Kippur. The greater similarity is that it's the first avodah. It's the first avodah. We learn now Yom Kippur from Miluim that they're both the first avodah. To the exclusion of all of the others, where it's not the first avodah. For example, what does this mean? The avodah tchila. What does that mean? My tchila. What does it mean? If you mean to say it's the first avodah with the Kohen Gadol, so essentially that's the same chiluk as the previous one, meaning that both Miluim and Yom Kippur are the Kohen Gadol, and the other ones are not the Kohen Gadol. The fact that it's the first with the Kohen Gadol or not, that's not meiser. That doesn't add anything. The essential point is that they're both Davka with the Kohen Gadol. The fact that it's also the first avodah with the Kohen Gadol, is not mila or moed, doesn't add anything to this. The basic distinction is that it's with the Kohen Gadol. Ella, the Gemara says, what does it mean? Tchila, ella avodah tchila b'makam. It's the first avodah to be done in that place. Me avodah tchila b'makam. So by the Miluim, it was the first avodah that was done in the Beis HaMikdash. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu did prior to that, but this is the first avodah with the full complement of avodah, with the big day kahuna, etc. This was the first one that was done in the Beis HaMikdash, and we learn out Yom Kippur, which is the first avodah that was done in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So therefore, they both have the similarity. We learn out one from the other. Ki also Rav Dimi Alma Rav Yochanan Masna Chad. So from this pasuk that we brought down from the Miluim, Rav Yochanan only learns out one halacha, but Rav Shimon Levi learns out two. Rav Yochanan Master Chale, he learns out only one requirement, meaning we're learning out from Miluim. We're applying this halacha that there is a prisha of 7 days. We only apply it to one case. He says, La says lechaper elamasim kippurim. He learns that it's one limud, lasas l'chaper. It's a reference to what you should do in the future. It refers to Yom Kippur, that you need Prisha Yom Kippur. He learns out for two halachas, two cases. Lasas say l'masay para. L'chaper l'maseh Yomi Kippurim. He learns it out for both cases, that there's a lasas l'chaper, there's a prisha for Parah Aduma, before the kohen who's going to burn the Parah Aduma needs a sequestering for 7 days, and also for Yom Kippur. He only applies it to one case, only to Yom Kippur. We learned in the Mishnah, however, Shivas Yom Kippurim, V'Shivas Yom Kaidim Sreifas Apara, but we learned it for both cases. The Mishnah also says that there's a separation before the burning of the Parah Aduma. The Gemara answers, Malabalma. Rav Yochanan holds it's not a limud that is a genuine limud. It's a churma d'Rabbanan. It's a ma'alabal. It's a churma that they made that for the kohen as part of the serve the Parah Aduma. Since we learned before, since they were made this kula that they were matame him and made him into Tful Yom, and he was stable made a Tful Yom, so loheisim leavim shal tzedukim, so they made these milas, but it may ikar then it's not required. He said, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, it says, Kasher also b'yem hazeh tziva Hashem lasos lechaper aleichem. So the pasuk by the Miluim says, lasos lechaper, lasos elamaisa para, lechaper elamaisa Yom Kippurim. So we learn out both from this pasuk. And they said in the name of Rav Yochanan. More answers, Hahu the Rabbi. Hahu the Rabbi. That Rav Yochanan said over there, it's not Rav Yochanan, his own shita. He said it in the name of his Rebbe. But he himself does not agree with that. Techiyasa Rabin Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yishmael. He said, Lasas elamaisa par l'chaper elamaisa Yom Kippurim. So he was this over here that he said that he learned out both of them was in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, but he himself does not hold that way. Amarle Rish Lakish L'Riyachah. He asked him, how do you know, from where do you know that before Yom Kippur you have to separate the Kohen Gadol? So he says, Mi Miluim. Rabbi Yochanan says, we learn from Miluim. If that's the case, well, if that's the case, if you're learning out from Miluim, well, just like the Miluim, all that's mentioned there is ma'akev. It must be done. It has to be done. If not, it's not kosher. How do we know that? We'll see that later in the Gemara. But that is the case by the Miluim. So if we're learning out from the Miluim, so we should say that afacha nami kolakosef b'makabem. So we should say here also that everything that is mentioned should be makib, meaning therefore that the prisha, the separation, should be makib, and without that you should not be able to do the avodah. Well, perhaps you'll say yes, and chanami, that's the case, and that without the prisha, the kohen gadol could not do the avodah Yom Kippur. How could you say that? We learned in the Mishnah, we also prepare a substitute kohen gadol. In case the kohen gadol becomes tamei, we prepare a substitute to take his place. Now, for the substitute, it doesn't mention mafrishin. So even though we designate a substitute, but we're not mafrishim. Now, if it turns out that the kohen gadol cannot do the avodah, you have the substitute. Well, if the substitute didn't have hafrosha, if it's ma'akev, how can he do the avodah? Doesn't that show you that the hafrosha is not ma'akev? Well, perhaps you'll say, but what does it mean by maskini that we prepare? It means mafrishin. It means we prepare and we separate and we sequester him. Maybe that's what it means by the substitute as well. Gemara says no, can't be, because listen, oy idi in this maskinin, oy idi mafrishin. Why should it change the language? If by the kohen gadol says mafrishin, you separate him, you sequester him, then if it meant by the substitute, also it has to be done that way. It should use the same language. It should also say mafrishin, but it changes it to and use the lotion of maskinim. So it should be consistent. Either in both cases say mafrishin, or in both cases say maskinim. But the fact that it changes it shows you that it's something different. By the Kohen Gadol's mafrishin, but by the substitute, you're not mafrishin. You just designate him, and as the ritual says, you instruct him and warn him to keep away from tumah, but you don't separate him per se. Omar Le, so Rav Yechon says, Elamar mehecha yolef lo. So Rav Yechon says, well, where do you learn it out from? You have this kasha, so apparently you don't learn it out from the Lum. Where do you learn it out from? Now the Rishonim speak out that the Rav Yechon didn't answer this kasha of Reish Lakish. It appears, though, that he did not accept this kasha. He just asked Reish Lakish, where do you learn out from? But it doesn't appear that he accepted this kasha. The Tosfos Harash, Tosfos Rishonim also speak out that, and based on Yerushalmi, that many times when there's a limud, that what you're learning out to, it doesn't necessarily mean that even though the source is ma'akev, that what you're learning, the place you're learning out to, also is ma'akev. It could be that that's the amayla, that's l'chadchila, that's the way it should be done, but not necessarily ma'akev. But apparently, Reish Lakish held that if you're learning out from Eluim, if Eluim is ma'akev, it would have to be ma'akev over here, and it's not. The hafrosh is not ma'akev here, so you, Reish Lakish, where do you learn out from? Omar, Reish Lakish says, we learn out Misinai. We learn it out from Har Sinai, not from the Miluim. We learn out from Sinai. It says that the cloud of Hashem covered Resam on the mountain. Vayikra Moshe b'yom hashvi'ah, called Moshe Rabbeinu on the seventh day. Now, as we'll see, Reish Lakish learns that the Vayachaseu, it means that we learn out that it covered Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was enveloped by the cloud for 6 days, and he was called up on the seventh day. So, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu was separated. He was Afrasha for 6 days, and then after that, before going to the Shechina, he was now on the seventh day. He was called up. So it says it says he was called up on the seventh day. My sheishes yomim. Why does the Pasuk have to say that Moshe Rabbeinu was covered for 6 days? As the Tosfos Harash explains, meaning if he was called up on the seventh day, then obviously he was covered for the 6 days. Why does it have to specify that he was covered for the 6 days? He was called up on the seventh, that means that implies clearly that he would have been covered for the 6 days. Why does it say specifically he was covered for 6 days and then called on the seventh day? It's to teach you, to learn out from here. It teaches you that if you're going to Machne Shechina, you need a separation for 6 days. So similarly, the Kohen Gadol, he's going to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, to Machne Shechina, he needs a separation for 6 days. Back to Gemara, it's fine. But Ba'anan Shiva Tanan. Our Mishnah says there's a separation for 7 days. And from here, you're only learning how to separation for 6 days. More answers. Masnisan Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira. Our Mishnah is going with Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira. The chayish is chayish al tumas beisai. He's chayish that if he would have relations with his wife and she would be a nida, then he would be tamei for 7 days. So therefore, we have to be mafresh him for 7 days. We have to be mafresh him for 7 days in case that prior to the 6 days he had relations with his wife, and if she might have been a nida, and that would have caused it to be tamei for 7 days. Therefore, we have an afrosha for 7 days. Hashem asks the kasha, well, then why do we need both reasons? So we have this chashash of tumah. So many of the Rishonim answer that it would be, if not for the limud that we have from Sinai, we would say that just that he had to be separated from his wife. He wouldn't have to have a complete afrosha, be sequestered. So therefore we learn out from Sinai that there is a hafrosha, and we add on an extra day because of this tumah, the chashash tumah. But without Sinai, we wouldn't know that there's a hafrosha. So here we learn out that there's a complete separation from everybody. An alternative answer is that the chashash, this is only a chashash, that he might have had relations with the wife and she was a nida. We wouldn't have imposed the 7 days for this alone. But now that we have a makor that there's a hafrasha anyway, so we add on an extra day because of this chashash. But we need the basic makor that we make this hafrasha from Sinai. Once we have the source that we make hafrasha from Sinai, due to this chashash, we add on an extra day.